Hey everybody, Dave here, and today I want to do a little bit of a deeper dive, a deeper look into one of the several solo tabletop RPG games I introduced in a video a couple months ago called Introduction to Solo RPGs, and that game is called Four Against Darkness. That video from a couple of months ago to introduce solo RPGs, I was pleasantly surprised by how well received it was by the community. It pretty quickly outgrew just about all of the Pathfinder videos I have on this channel. So that pretty much is a sign that there's people out there who want to learn more about the hobby of solo tabletop RPGs, and as well as in the comments of that video, there was that sentiment expressed as well. So I'm going to do a number of these videos I call solo spotlights. This will be the first, where I just take a deeper look into a solo RPG. And today we're going to start with Four Against Darkness. I'm choosing to start with Four Against Darkness because this is kind of what I might consider an entry-level tabletop RPG. It is it's designed for simplicity. It's designed to be quick to set up and take down. And so this is a decent gateway into the hobby for a lot of people. And since this is kind of an introduction as well to this game, I'm going to be using the same 5 criteria I typically use when talking about new RPGs, and that's the game's pitch, genre and setting, core mechanics, character creation and advancement, and price and availability. So to get us started, let's talk about the pitch. The pitch for Four Against Darkness is pretty simple. It's a fantasy RPG dungeon crawl, but what sets Four Against Darkness apart from a number of the other solo RPGs and solo dungeon crawls is you may be a single player, but you're controlling a party of 4 people. So you get the feeling of playing with a group, of managing a group, a team, a party, but it's still a solo experience. And that's kind of separates it from other games like a D100 Dungeon and a few others that are solo games where you control one character. Now, as far as the genre and setting, there's nothing too fancy here. There is an official setting. I think it's called Norendal, but you don't really need to know that because this is about as generic fantasy as it gets, which is both good and bad. It could be viewed as a downside because it's not really taking risks and doing anything to push a narrative, and there's really not much of a narrative included in the game to begin with, and I'll talk more about that in a little bit. But it's a plus because this is a solo experience. So this really should be your world, and you should be the one crafting it and filling in all the gaps of NPCs and locations and armies and countries and so on and so forth. Specifically, the core game takes place within dungeons, caves, and other typical fantasy structures. But expansions to the game have added outdoor environments like forests and swamps, and the latest and by far largest expansion to the game has added towns and urban adventure to the game as well, and it moves the game closer to being a proper role-playing experience rather than the simple dungeon crawl experience that is found with the base game. But the game itself is just very generic fantasy. It's based on Western European sort of Tolkien-style fantasy literature, so there are humans and elves and dwarves and gnomes and that sort of thing. As far as the setting goes, it also leans very heavily towards old school RPG systems, very much in the vein more of like first edition Dungeons and Dragons than the more heroic and powerful characters you might find in 5th edition D&D or Pathfinder 2nd edition and more modern tabletop RPGs. For core mechanics, there are really 2 core mechanics, and the first deals with dungeon design. As you explore the dungeon, you will roll 2d6 to determine the shape of the corridor or room being added to the map, as well as making a random roll to decide what is in that room or corridor. As with other aspects of the game, this is fairly simple and bare bones in the core book and further expanded on in the game's many supplemental books. In general, rooms may provide treasure, enemies, special events, or traps, all of which are randomly determined. If a room appears to be empty, you can search it just like you would do in a tabletop RPG. The ultimate goal of the base game is to find the dungeon's final boss and defeat them. After that, you can leave the dungeon to rest up before delving into the next dungeon. The second core mechanic is for combat. 4 Against Darkness is designed with simplicity in mind. When your party encounters a monster, each character will take a turn to attack. You'll roll 1d6 and add any attack modifier the character might have and compare it to the monster's level. If your total meets or beats their level, you damage them. Enemies come in 4 varieties: vermin, minions, bosses, and weird monsters. Vermin and minions die if they suffer any damage at all, and bosses and weird monsters have a number of life points listed in their descriptions. Every successful attack applies 1 point of damage per multiple of the enemy's level. For example, say you're fighting against a group of level 3 minions and you have an attack bonus of +2. We'll say you roll 1d6 and get a 5 on that die, plus your attack bonus of +2 for a total of 7. In this case, you would deal 1 point of damage per multiple of the enemy's level, which means you would deal 2 points of damage. You're fighting minions, which only have 1 life point each, so this attack would kill 2 of them with the 1 attack. This may sound complicated, but I assure you it's very quick and easy in practice. And the same process is followed when fighting bosses and weird monsters too, except they have more life points. If you're fighting a level 4 boss who has 5 life points and get a total of 9 on your attack roll, you deal them 2 points of damage because 4 goes into 9 2 times. So this would reduce that boss's life points from 5 to 3. After all 4 members of your party attack, the enemies get their turn. This process works the same, except you will not be making attack rolls for the monsters. Instead, you'll make defense rolls for the characters. All combat rolls are made for the members of your party and not for their enemies. When one of your characters attack, you roll 1d6 and add their attack bonus. When a monster attacks one of your characters, you roll 1d6 for the character and add that character's defense bonus. If that total beats the attacking monster's level, you dodge, parry, or otherwise avoid suffering damage. But if that total is equal to the attacking monster's level or lower, you suffer 1 point of damage. A roll of 1 is always a failure and a roll of 6 is always a success, and also be aware that dice explode in this game. So next we have character creation and advancement. Character creation in this game is very simple, very easy. You essentially just take a character sheet, you write down a name for all 4 members of your party, and you select a class for each of them. The class descriptions are very brief and will inform you of their special traits, allowed weapons, starting equipment, starting money, and number of life points. Then calculate the character's attack and defense bonuses according to their traits and equipment, and choose spells for some of those spellcasters, and that's it. That's all there really is to it. The core book includes classes for Barbarian, Cleric, Rogue, Warrior, Dwarf, Elf, and Halfling. This game does lean a little more towards old school D&D, where demi-human ancestries were presented as being their own classes. So there is a dwarf class and an elf class and a halfling class, as opposed to having dwarf clerics and halfling rogues and so on and so forth. Expansion books add more classes such as druids, trolls, gnomes, martial spellcasters, paladins, rangers, wardens, scions, gladiators, and really a lot more that I don't have time or space to list here. It will not take you very long at all to create a party of 4 because these stats are very simple. They don't have armor classes, they don't have saving throw bonuses, they don't have skills and proficiencies, and so on and so forth. It's very, very simple. And when you level up, all you do is you get basically 1 more life point, and anything that's based on level goes up by 1 as well because your level just went up. And that's it. This isn't a game where you're going to be choosing feats at level up. This isn't a game where you're going to be choosing from a wealth of new spells when you level up. I think the core basic beginner's book has, I think, 6 spells in it. So again, it's all aimed to be simple. Now, the one thing I will say about advancement, and this probably is my least favorite uh, aspect of this entire game, is that it uses random luck to determine when a character advances in a level. This isn't a game where you accumulate experience points based on killing monsters and finding treasure and completing quests and doing good deeds, and then when you get 1,000 experience points, you move up a level. Instead, this is a game where whenever you defeat a boss, whenever you complete a quest, and at some other times of important milestones within the game, you are awarded an experience roll. And so, experience rolls are basically a currency that is given to the player that the player can then spend to level up an individual member of their 4 player party. And the way that works is you roll 1d6, and if the natural number on the d6 is higher than their current experience level, then that character advances 1 level. So at the start, when everybody is first level, if I earn an experience roll and I assign it to one of my 4 characters, I roll 1d6, and if the number on that die is 2 or higher, then the character moves up to second level. If I roll a 1, then too bad, they didn't go up a level. So at first level, this doesn't sound too bad, but it is the random number generation and praying to RNGesus and so on and so forth to hopefully get the roll you need to move up. And I can't tell you how many times I have rolled ones when trying to move my characters just from first level to second level. It's really maddening. You also might notice that if you have to roll on a d6 to advance a level, and that number has to be higher than your current level, then the highest level you can achieve is 5th level. And that's true for the beginning book. For the core book, there's 1,000,001 expansion books that I'll be talking about shortly. But in the core book, it only goes up to level 5. And there are a couple of other books that will take the level cap. One takes it from 5th to 9th level, another one takes it from 9th to 19th level. And although it hasn't been released yet, I don't believe it has, they have announced a legendary tier of play that will be level 20 or above. And I believe they plan to publish that book later this year. So our 5th criteria when looking at new games is price and availability. At the time of this recording, the 4 Against Darkness core book can be purchased in print through Amazon for $13.25, and the print versions of various expansions can also be purchased there for between $6 and $15 each. If you want one of the books in print and you can't find it on Amazon, try lulu.com, as most of the 4 Against Darkness books are available for print on demand there. PDFs for all of the books can be purchased either through the official website or through DriveThruRPG. And with the exception of the latest major expansion, which is called Treacheries of the Troublesome Towns, you'll notice that this series really loves alliteration in its titles. But Treacheries of the Troublesome Towns is a 2-book volume. Each book is 200 pages long. That is an extreme outlier. With that one exception out of the way, most of the books are less than 100 pages, or like 50 to 60 or so pages. They're pretty lightweight. And since we're on the topic of talking about price and availability, I'm going to move into some of our pros and cons as well, because my very first pro and my very first con are both price. I think price is a pro because for $13, $15, maybe $8 on the PDF, whatever is going for right now, you can get a great simple, lightweight solo dungeon crawl and have a lot of fun with. But the con there is that, like I mentioned before, there's a million and one expansions. And there is a hazard you might run into if you're like me, who kind of feels like I gotta collect them all, gotta get them all. Um, if you start buying these things at $13 to $15 a pop, that can add up really really fast. So my recommendation would be start with this, see if you like it, and ease your way into buying expansions if you really want to broaden the scope of the game, but don't feel like you should have to go out and buy them all at once. So let's talk a little bit about these expansion books and what they give you. So first, there are the two books I mentioned earlier that raise the level cap. We have Four Against the Abyss, and Four Against the Abyss raises the level cap from 5 to 9 and gives you another tier per play. This is, I believe, considered the expert tier, and it adds things like expert skills. It allows you to flesh out and customize your characters a little more than they are able to be fleshed out between levels 1 and 5. And then, after Four Against the Abyss, there is Four Against the Forsaken Depths. So this is going to take it two more tiers from level 9 to 14, and then level 15 to level 19 is another tier of play. And both of those tiers are in this book, so this is going to take the level cap from 9 all the way to 19. Some other books you might be interested in are ones that add more character classes and more character options to the game. So I have a few of those. There is Wayfarers and Adventurers, which is very much nature focused. This is going to add druids and druid magic, druid scrolls, druid spells, as well as some other classes that are more nature focused, and also includes animal companions, which is not a feature that's included in the base game. And then another book to look at for more character options and classes is Delvers and Wanderers. This book adds a handful of new classes, I think the most familiar of which is probably Ranger. It also adds a Spear Fighter class, a Bulwark class, and in addition to the classes, the last third or so of the book is a new sewer crawl. So it takes you out of the more traditional toons and dungeons and gives you an adventure in a sewer with new tables to represent the shape of the sewer and what you find in the sewer and so forth. In the other book that's worth mentioning for new classes and character options is the Concise Collection of Classes. Again, they love their alliteration here. And this book, it has, like the first half of it is a number of different classes. Assassin, Elder, which is like a retired adventurer, an older person who comes back into adventuring. Fire Elves, Harlequins, Marksman, Monk, Ogre, Mercenary. So the first half of the book is all these new classes. And I think it also has some new animal companions to go along with some of those classes as well. The second half of the book is interesting because it is the first, like, real true fluff and not crunch that I've seen for this setting. The second half of the book is all about the dwarves of this fantasy setting and the different dwarven clans and the gods they worship and so on and so forth. So if you're a person who wants to get more of the setting and flavor of the setting, Concise Collection of Classes will give you a good bit of that, but I think it's all specific to dwarves. They also publish a number of books that have pre-made sort of prescriptive adventures, not unlike a choose your own adventure or a game book where instead of randomly rolling for every aspect of the dungeon, you can have a pre-made adventure for you to go through with a pre-made dungeon, and also actually give you a story and more information to kind of flesh out where you're going and why you're going there, as opposed to the base book, which is just you're going into some dungeon somewhere and just kill monsters and find treasure. So I've got a number of these. These are by no means all of them. But the first is Ordeal of the Magic Tower. And Ordeal of the Magic Tower is it's kind of the Harry Potter of the books, so to speak. It's not quite as targeting like young fantasy like that, but the idea is you make a party of like zero level apprentice wizards, or you could make a party of like two wizards and two henchmen who are assisting them. But the idea is you're going through your wizard trials to graduate from being an apprentice wizard and graduating them into being proper first level wizards who you could then take and put in through a regular four against darkness type game. So that specific adventure is designed for that in mind, but you might not want to do a standard dungeon crawl with a party of entirely wizards. So what the game recommends is actually doing troop play, where you might make a company that has 8 or 12 characters in it and swap them out, mix and match however you want for every dungeon you might want to delve into. The second book is The Knight of Destiny. And again, you can see these are pretty thin books. They're pretty brief. You can play them in an hour ish. Um, but The Knight of Destiny is all about Arthurian legend. And I'll have to confess, I've never really read or studied much on Arthurian legend, so I don't know a whole lot about it. But the story of the Knight of Destiny is Camelot is in turmoil. Sir Lancelot has left the realm. King Arthur is terribly ill. Morgan Le Fay is sort of has taken over with her son Mordred, and a number of knights have kind of betrayed the crown and are now serving her instead of King Arthur. And so you play a knight. This introduces the paladin class, and the paladin class is slightly more powerful than a standard character class. And instead of you making a party of 4 paladins or 4 knights, in this game, you're playing as the singular knight, and you can fill out the other 3 slots in your party with different retainers that are going to aid you on your quest. And your quest is to find the Holy Grail, to return it to Arthur to help heal him. And throughout this quest, you are going to be hunted down and attacked by the different knights who have betrayed the crown and now serve Morgan Le Fay. So this is an interesting book in that it changes up the dynamic of, instead of it being a standard 4 character party and they're all different kinds of adventurers. Instead, it's one paladin knight with up to, I think there are 3 retainers. And at the end of the adventure, they have rules for taking the paladin character out of this book and putting them in a standard 4 Against Darkness game, but they lose a little bit of their power in that transition. But don't feel like this has to be a one and done. After you play it, you can take your knight and move them into your regular character troop lineup and keep playing and adventuring with them. Then we have a couple of different adventures specifically for new players and new characters. So these are both for levels 1 and 2. The first is Caves of the Kobold Slave Masters, and then there is Dark Waters. I have not played Dark Waters yet. I just recently purchased this one, but it is seems to be very well regarded online as a great introduction. And so these books play a little more like a choose your own adventure, where you are making decisions. You're going on a predetermined map, and after you go to this location, turn to page 32 to see what happens, that sort of thing. But all in the 4 Against Darkness gameplay, and are going to include new monsters, new locations, new treasures, and so on and so forth that you're not going to find in the standard 4 Against Darkness game. And then I have Caverns of Chaos, which is an adventure for levels 3 through 6. Uh, and actually, I think the rest of these I have not played yet either. But that's Caverns of Chaos for 3 to 6. The Three Rings is for levels 3 and 4. And the Lost Temples of Kara is for levels 6 and higher. So I have these that I haven't played yet, and you might be saying, well, Dave, why haven't you played them yet? And the answer is largely because I just find it easy to set up and play the randomly generated dungeons. But also, I'm a big fan of the 4 Against Darkness cards. So let me grab a deck and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So this does still fall under that category of price can be a con, because if you get too deep and you buy too much too fast, it can all add up. But in addition to having adventure books, they also have adventure cards. And these card sets, the one I'm holding here is Curse of Castle Ravenstein. You can probably guess it's a little inspired by Ravenloft. It's a little more of that sort of Eastern European, Transylvanian vibe to it. But the way these work is, instead of you rolling dice on random tables, each card has basically all the content of a number of different tables. So instead of rolling on a table to decide what the room looks like, you would draw a card, and that card would show you a description of that room. Some decks provide everything you need for new stories, while others provide cards for locations or enemies and allow you to draw a card when needed instead of rolling and referring to random tables. So there you have it, a quick breakdown of 4 Against Darkness to help you decide if it's worth checking out further. If you have any questions about this game, please leave them in the comments. Also, if you have played 4 Against Darkness before, please share your thoughts about it in the comments as well. And as always, I want to take a brief moment to say thank you to everyone who supports me and this channel, whether that's by leaving your comments and suggestions, clicking on the like button, buying a super thanks, subscribing to the channel, subscribing to the Patreon. Thank you for everything you do to support me. And with that, thanks for watching, take care, and happy gaming.